And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to try to get participants. Come on. Where's the? And I'm going to spotlight myself so you can see what's going on. So this is the book it came from, Flies for Bass and Panfish. And there were two patterns in here that intrigued me for potential bass flies if we're going to fish outright. The top one is the one, that first fly that you saw there. It's the Hornberg Special. And then the bottom one is the streamer version. So I'm doing the streamer version, which is this guy here. The hook is it says 4X long, but I actually have a little longer hook. It's these Mustad hooks over the years, they've changed their numbers and whatnot a bit. So what I'm using for a hook is this guy here, which is actually it says 5XL, but I don't think it's quite. It's a size 6 heavy wire hook, because I want this thing to have a little bit of sinkability if we're going to fish the lakes around here, like Elk Lake for pike, or sorry, for bass. Thread is 6/0, and I'm just going to start a little bit in front of where the point of the hook is to lay a little base of the thread, and I'll run it back to where the barb was. I have actually gone and crunched the barb down. And then the body is flat silver tinsel. And this tinsel that I have is a two-sided. It's gold one side and silver on the other. So what you have to do when you're tying this in is tie it in so that when you tie it in with the gold side up so that it flips over when you start wrapping. And so I'll just very quickly tie that at the back. Make sure it's gold side out, because it will flip over. Oh, come on. My bobbin has been sitting here, spun the wrong way, so I have to flip it over so that it falls the correct way. And then I'll just open spiral the thread back up the hook shank. Doesn't have to be touching turns. I'll take it back to 3 or 4 eye widths behind the eye of the hook. At that point, I'm going to make my life a little simpler by putting a 1/2 inch on there. And then get my bobbin rest over here and snug it up so that I can actually use the rotary feature on my vise to get this thing started. So when I start the wrap, I want to make sure that the silver side is out, which I've got it set there now. Come on, silver side out. There we are. And then we'll start just using the rotary version of the vise to wrap up the hook shank. And this just gives the underbody a little bit of shine, what I can tell from the text in the book. And just wrap that right up the hook shank. And when I get back to that sort of 3 eye widths, 2 or 3 eye widths behind the eye, I will tie it off. And from here, everything is going to happen at the front of the hook. Now, the next bit that I want to put on here is the underside of the inside side of the fly. They call it a wing, but basically it's just some stuff to shroud the silver. And this is a yellow, dyed yellow bucktail. And I don't need a whole lot. But I'm going to take, because of how uneven the bucktail is, I'm going to take a bit more than I need, because I'm going to be stripping out some of the really short and really long fibers. I discovered I do have a fine tooth comb. So what I'm going to do is just take out the really short, fluffy stuff, because if you don't do that, it won't stack properly. So I'm just going to take the fuzzy short bits out. And then I have some really long stuff here. I'm going to take those out as well and restack them so that the tips are somewhat lined up. And the really long ones that are going to get in the way when I stack it are going to pull out as well. Now stick that in my hair stacker. And then I'll whack that on the table here. Try and get the tips more or less. I don't have to be perfectly even, but get them more or less even. So there's still a little ragginess to it, but that's okay. So then I'm going to take this and I'm going to measure it so that the hair sticks out probably half a shank length behind the hook. This is a little bit of a long fly. And then I put this right on top and do 2 loose wraps, far enough back that I can still work in front. And then when I get it on there, I'm just going to wiggle it around the hook shank a bit to sort of shroud that body of the fly with the bucktail and cinch it up. Get my scissors here and I'm going to trim it off right at the front. And then tie the loose ends down good and snug. So that's the underbody. And I may twist it around a little bit again more so it's nice and covers the whole body reasonably well. Now I'm built a little bit of a thread base here where I'm going to attach a whole bunch of stuff. So the next order of business is to give this guy a tail. So for that, I have selected some Grizzly Hackle that has enough length to extend just past the tail. And I've stripped them down to about the length that I want. And I've actually got them groomed a little bit so that they kind of curve up when I attach them to the side of the fly and curve in. So I use a light stroke with my fingernail just to set that stem where I want it. So that's a little bit, that's where I want it. And then I'll take the fuzz off at the front, leaving just the stem. And I just want to shorten it up a bit. I'll turn the vise on its side and lay the near side one on the right horizontally along the side of the body. Hold it with my thumb and then wrap the stem onto the side of the head. That didn't quite go the way I wanted. Yeah, right there. I want it on the side of the hook, the stem on the side of the hook, and adjust the thick part of the stem so that it pull out. Put it on the side so that the stem is parallel on the bare stem is parallel to the hook shank. Get that good and solid in there. And that'll cause the tail to run parallel to the hook shank. And we'll turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. Now just make sure the lengths are approximately the same. Need to pull a little more stuff off of there. And I'll lay that on the side as well. Hold it with my thumb. Get the stem in the right spot. So now I have the two hackles that are basically on opposite side of the shank of the hook and on the sides of the hook. Then I need 2 pieces of mallard flank to give the cheeks on this thing. And I want the cheeks to extend maybe approximately halfway, a little more than halfway down the hook shank. And so I'll strip back the mallard flank fibers to expose the stem in the length that I want. Just a little long. And I'll do the same thing with this. I'll lay it down on the hook shank on the side, hold it with my thumb, and wrap a couple of wraps on the shank to get that mallard flank in the right place. And then I'll pull the stem forward a little bit under the wraps so that it stays in the right spot. And pick that up, finish that. And then I'll take the other piece of mallard flank and I'll measure that for the length I want and strip off the extra bit of fluff. It's still a little long. You have to go through your little bag of mallard flank to pick the ones that work in terms of size and length. And again, I'll roll the hook on its side, bring my thread back, and just stay there. Just tension. Come on. And once I get it there, I'm going to, again, pull it forward so that it matches the length down the side of the fly on both sides. That's a little bit long, so I'll just suck it forward a bit more. It's about right. And cinch that down. And then the highlight that gives that sort of eye on the side is this stuff here, which is I actually have a patch of jungle cock that I bought many years ago that is actually the whole shebang. Where I put it. There it is. So there's the jungle cock bag. So I've got a bunch of those. So I've never seemed to tie flies that use this. So I'll do the same thing again. I'll take the jungle cock and put it about halfway down where the mallard flank is. And I'll tie that down on the side of the hook. Make sure it's in the right place. That way. That's the trick, is getting the shaft of that feather so that it pushes the mallet, pushes it at straight down parallel to the hook shank. Trim the excess. Then I got another one here. Lay that on the other side. Lay it down on the side of the shank. Once again, wrap it in so that it's in the right space and kind of eyeball to make sure it goes back at the same distance as the one on the other side. And trim the excess. So that's pretty much the bulk of the fly, with the exception of the hackle. And so what I'm going to use for a hackle is I've got a very webby saddle hackle, and I'll pick one that I think has about the right barb length, which is a little longer than that one. So about the right barb length on this guy. And I'm not going to use the whole feather, but I'll use a fair bit of it. And I'm going to cover up that bulk of thread eventually with hackle. So I'm going to tie this on, curved side facing away from me. Tie that on the side of the hook. And bring my thread forward to the eye, and then bring the thread back just enough to put this hackle as a wound hackle. And tie a half hitch just to keep my bobbin out of the way. And then take my hackle pliers, grab this guy by the tip, and then start wrapping this head that causes the disturbance with its fibers as you strip it or troll it through the water. And I'm going to make a fairly bulky head wrapping forward and kind of weaving in through there so that we get a very bulky but soft head on this thing. And when I get to the front of where I've got that built up thread body, I'll then hold it up and tie it down, front, trim the excess. And then I'm going to build a bit of a head by pulling back the hackle, and then I'll wrap in front of it to build a head right back that kind of forces that hackle backwards a little bit at the very front, and a little bit of a tapered head. When I get there, I will take my whip finisher and finish it off. And the last thing I'll do is take my glue, because I don't want the glue to go into the hackle too much. I'm just going to take a little bit of glue on my bodkin and just touch the last of the red wraps there. I don't want to leak the glue into the hackle and have it get stiff at the bottom. I want it to flutter around a bit when it's stripped. And that is basically it.
Very nice, Dave.
Makes a nice fly, and it's a fairly straightforward techniques to do, and it does make a nice streamer fly.
Mm-hmm.
Does it cast well?
Let me just get me off the spot.
I mean, it's almost like a bait fish imitation.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
the whole point. It is, yeah. And then I need to get here, and I'll remove the spotlight.
And these feather streamers are really easy to cast, unlike the bunny things, which are more for trolling. So if you actually like to cast, this is a good one.
And because of the bulk in the front, that's going to cause turbulence along the fly as you troll it or strip it, and that's going to move around, make that tail move around a bit. And then, of course, the whole idea of the jungle cock is to give a little bit of a hot spot to be a bit of an attractor.
Don't fish that for bass if you have heart problems.
Yeah. It could be very entertaining. There we go. So Florin, you're up.
Okay, tough act to follow. Here's my thing. Most of my fly tying books are packed. So I have limited bookish inspiration, but I was at the hatchery on Thursday and I got to see the release of one of the last, I don't know if there's any chum left. Maybe there's 1 or 2 tanks of chum left. But anyway, I was looking at the Chum Fry.
No, there isn't any chum left.
Okay, so that was maybe some were released on Friday, I don't know, but this could have been very well one of the last batches of chum released in Goldstream. And they're very, if you look at a mass of chum, they're very green. If you look at an individual fish, you're struck by the bright silver on their sides, but their backs have this distinct greenish quality to it. So I was like, okay, well, it's kind of the end of the season for that, but there will be a next season next year, I hope. And so let's try to think up something here. So of course, a quick look on YouTube revealed a pattern that's pretty much the inspiration for this one. The guy was using a material I don't have, which is a semi-seal, but a very long fibered semi-seal that allowed him to fashion a whole streamer out of 2 colors of dubbing. One of them was this greenish thing, which I think this was a fly shop that was kind of to some extent flogging their wares, and they had a version of semi-seal long fiber that was in a color that they labeled Chum Fry, which is very close to this. So after some digging in boxes of materials, I found this UV Mackerel thing, which I'm not sure if I picked at the fishing hole in Edmonton or at Robinson's in Victoria, but this is what it looks like. It's frightfully expensive, but it feels to me like it's the color I was searching for. It's a little bit stiff. That's this is the softest thing that I could come up with. The silver part this is a very soft flash. This is the softest flash that I'm aware of. It's even softer than the fine Flashaboo or polar flash. And this is the Kreelex stuff. If you have something else that's equally soft, I think that would be a good material. So for my taste for streamers, I like to have soft things in the wing of the streamer, which is effectively the body of the fish. The yellow eyes, okay, I apologize. That's a deviation from what they should be. I didn't notice any yellow eyes on the fry, but okay, let's just call it a hot spot and get on with it. And the other interesting idea with this streamer that I picked up from that guy on YouTube was to build the par marks on Chum Fry are very subtle, and they only go on the upper half of the body. And so you kind of hide them inside the body of the fly like this. So once you get this wet, you'll barely be able to see those par marks. Okay, so those are some of the ideas behind hooking up this fly. And I've experimented a little bit. I now have a little patch of flies here to test out. The hook itself is I guess what used to be a standard Mustad 34011. That's kind of their longer shanked saltwater streamer. This is a size 6, which I thought would be probably appropriate for the size of fly I'm trying to imitate. The thread is just standard black. In this particular case, happens to be uni thread, and I'll show you the label on this one because it's on a Norvise bobbin. Okay. First thing that goes on, so we kind of have to remember the order in which things go on. First thing to put here is going to be the rib, which is just black floss. Use whatever material you like that's going to give you a ribbing that's to your liking. I'm not going to get overexcited about having too many closely touching turns of thread because there's no need. This is going to be covered with tinsel. I would normally use a size 12 tinsel on this size fly. Similar size if you have some silver flashabou, or this is just some Christmas tinsel that I picked up at Canadian Tire a while back, and I still have for this current life and probably a few future lifetimes. And I come reincarnated as a fly tire. So here I'm going to do the standard stuff. So I'm going to wrap this backwards, not worrying too much about touching turns either, just worrying about not cutting my tinsel with the point of the hook, which is very sharp. Here, go to the bend and then angle it forward. Keep constant tension, keep wrapping. I never really understood what rotary vices are for until I started to tie streamers on a regular basis. And now it's like, how did I ever live without a rotary vice? So secure with a couple of turns behind, and now secure with a few more turns in front. This will lock it in forever. Okay, put it aside. And now I'm not going to bother with tying a knot. You can, if your hook is reasonably well aligned, there's no need, it's not going to unravel. Just put your bobbin over the bobbin holder and you're in business. Now wrap the floss. You want a dark band at the back there, just do it. It won't matter much because I decided I'm going to give this a coating. So all I want is for the wraps to be even looking, nothing else. So bring this forward. Secure, same method. Couple of turns back in front of the floss and then turn it off. This happens to be whatever, uni floss, but you know, embroidery floss would work just as well. All right. One more thing that I want to do, and this is to let me get away with just using floss here and also making this thing seriously solid. So I'm going to take a little bit of, whoops. Okay, well, you're going to have to excuse me here for a moment because what happened is my UV resin has developed a solid blob covering the brush. So I got to get rid of that blob before I can continue using this stuff. Be back in a moment. Time for a commercial pause.
This is the art of fly tying is solving problems. Being able to solve them when they arise unexpectedly.
And we are back with a clean brush. You can tell I haven't used this stuff in a while. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is just brush this stuff on. This is the very thinnest, most liquid thing that I could find. And as you can see, it hangs and droops unevenly and uglily. But this is what rotary vices were invented for, right? Give her a spin. This thing is still spinning. Let her spin. And zap it. And by now this should be cured. And I have, of course, a few uglies. You can see as soon as I turn off the UV lamp, I have a few fibers of, so this is nice and dry. I have a few ugly fibers here of floss that have picked up some resin. And here, ugh. Tweezers will take care of that. Okay, it's not quite perfect. There's still a bit of a hump here. I didn't start spinning fast enough. It's still somewhat uneven here, the head, but let's not worry about that. Time to get the thread back in business and bring it back. Now I'm going to go back, as you can see, a fair distance, at least a couple of eye widths behind the eye of the hook. And I'm going to put a little bit of silver flash because I'm going to put dumbbell eyes on this. This is going to ride upside down. So remember, whatever I put on the back of the hook is going to be actually flipped over. It's going to be the belly of the fry. Take a few fibers of this silver Kreelex. The other thing about this fry is that they are actually fairly deep-bodied. If you look at them only from above, they look all very slender and everything. But once you see them on the side, they're actually quite flat and deep, okay, relative to their length. Okay, so I hook this on, and I'm just going to pull it back here where the thread is. Whoops, I don't want to go too far back. All right. I'll leave this here. And now I have to make a decision about the length of the total thing. So it's from the head here, the total length. I'm going to go to about here. I'm going to trim it at a little bit of an angle here, so that it all comes to a somewhat pointy end at the back. Now I'm going to put the eyes on. I know this is slightly unorthodox, but if you don't do this, then you pretty much have to tie a clouser, because that's the only way you're not going to get your wing to lie weirdly, because the eyes are going to lift your wing up in a big way. Okay, so maybe I put these eyes, I was a little over enthusiastic about how far back they needed to go. So do a few wraps here and then turn the fly upside down to continue with the other color. Now I'm going to get, and this is something that you, depending on whatever material you happen to use, this is something that's just going to come with experimenting how much bulk of whatever material you have you're going to be using. So again, I'm just going to fold this bunch of material I'm not gonna worry too much about even tips because in fact, I don't want to have tips that are too even. So this is not what I'm aiming for. So I'm just going to make these a bit more uneven by going through with my scissors and trying to put in a little bit of a taper. Okay. So here is my material bundled together and folded in half. And now I'm going to take the short end. And so I'm kind of doubling it again, but not quite. So I'm just going to take the short end, wrap this between my fingers so I get not quite happy with this. I'm just going to trim a little more. Okay. I'm going to place it here on the hook. And I'm going to measure up to about the point of the hook, like this. Okay. I'm trying to keep my thread as close as I can to the eyes and do one wrap. This is usually enough to hold your fibers in place. Okay, so you can worry about placement and things like that. So place this nice and centered. And then press down with your thumb a little bit to spread those fibers so they're not all in a tight bundle. You can probably see how I flattened them. Okay. Once you're happy that these fibers have been, so I'm trying to veil the body a little bit with these fibers. Do another wrap or two to secure that bundle properly. And then go forward a little bit, a few turns of thread. So this is gonna spread it a bit more and secure it very well to the hook shank. And now, when you reach close to the eye of the hook, fold the whole wing back. This is now going to be the back, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Press down with my thumb and then try to pinch it a little bit and spread those fibers a little bit down and to the sides. This is not very visible on camera, but that's exactly what I'm trying to do here. So once that's all down and secure, build up a bit of a head here. Gonna fill in that little, there's always a little notch at the eye of the hook, and I like to fill that as much as I can. This is obviously too long, it's gonna have to be trimmed later on, but I'm going to finish this off first here. One, two whip finishes. And now, because I've got my UV resin out and my brush cleaned, I may as well add a drop of resin here. So I can do two things at this stage. One is put a little bit of resin right here where I tied in the eyes, and then cover up a little bit of thread that I just built. Okay. This is going to secure everything very nicely, including the eyes, in case you had any sort of, doubts about my ability to tie eyes on hooks. Here. And then zap it again while spinning it, so hopefully I don't get any uglies this time. This is the thing when you work with very thin resin, there's kind of a sweet spot there for viscosity, but this one is almost a bit too thin. Okay, nice and dry. And yeah, I know this looks a little bit wacky, but we'll take care of that. We'll do some barbering now. All right, so here's the fly. Let's see, where do we want this to end? I can put it back in the vise actually, but not worrying about using this as a rotary vise really. I can now change the placement. Okay, so this one is a short fiber that is just not looking nice. And for the other stuff, now I have my wing here and I have the belly. So I want the wing to extend a little bit past that belly. So I'm pulling everything together. And now I'm going to try to cut from above at about that spot. That should be the right length. And then if I want to do more trimming, all I'm going to do is I'm going to try to kind of make that end a bit more uneven and tapered. That's the only thing left to do. And so this is gonna, when it gets wet, these things kind of mat together, and the barring here on the body is not gonna be as prominent as this. So there you go. And that's what I would do here at the end. I just take this, put it between my thumb and forefinger, and just do a bit of trimming. So flatten this combined wing and taper it a little bit. And that should kind of give me the profile I'm looking for. And it should also have enough softness so that it's a little bit alive in the water, also at slower speeds. If you're just pulling your fly very fast through the water, of course, it doesn't matter, it's just a blur of color. But if you pause and if you fish areas with slower current and things like that, softness of the material is really important. So, you know, a streamer that Dave tied will give you that sort of action at slow speeds. Feathers are almost magical for that. But I don't have feathers in the right colors. You know, if I had silver feathers and sort of chum green feathers, I probably would have used them, but I don't have any. And oh, the barring on the feathers has to be only on the upper half of the feather. So if anybody's got some chickens breeding with these characteristics, let me know. Yep, it should be upside down, sorry. There you go.
Very nice, Florin. What about putting a tiny bit of either bucktail or polar bear, like just a few strands of green in? What are your thoughts on that?
One of the first, I think the first couple of flies I tied, let me come back to the camera. So this is the one I just tied for you guys now. And this is one of my first experiments. This is a polar bear one with a bit of this greenish stuff, which or different. No, this was a different kind of material, some kind of angel hair or something like that I tried to use. I felt that this polar bear, it's almost under fur. It's not quite proper hair. I tied one with actual hair, and even here I went more in the underfur rather than in the hair. The polar bear hair is actually quite stiff.
Yeah.
That's the color is good, but then I thought, yeah, you know, I actually want more silver. So that's why I went to the. I know it's a bit of an abomination, right? It's all synthetics. But you know, here's some polar bear, right? Beautiful stuff. But
Mhm.
the hair itself, if you're tying things that are this small, I mean, this is a small thing, right?
Yeah.
If you're tying something this small, there's enough stiffness in the hair that'll come out a fairly stiff fly.
Yeah.
And so this is, you know, there are a few nice strands of long hair. These would make very nice, you know, 4 or 5 inch streamers.
Yeah. For sure.
That's not what I was trying to do. So yeah, no, I first thought I had was, oh, okay, well, I don't have the whatever the semi seal or whatever it was, but I have some polar bear, right? So I actually pulled on my desk some polar bear. I have some, I had some white, I had some green, and I had some of this sort of dirty blue. And I thought of putting together the green and the dirty blue to achieve a little bit of that effect.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm afraid that in order to tie a fly that's gonna feel right in the water, I was gonna have to tie a fair bit bigger than the size I was working with.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I
that was my thinking. That's how I ended up with this
yeah.
silver flash stuff.
But I guess some of the synthetics, which are very light and not stiff, could also be used
Oh,
to
absolutely.
just add a hint of that hint of green that you're talking about. So
Stuff like this,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
So this is another thing that I thought of using. This is whatever pearl green. So, you know, a bit of this combined with something else would probably give you that amount of green
That's
that
right.
that you're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, the ones you tied and a little bit of the variations are actually probably some good flies. What size were you tying those in mainly?
All of
4?
these, I took a pack of here they are.
Oh, 6.
Are
Okay.
the I still call them the 34011. I think Mustad is pulling out all their hooks. I don't know if they're still making this or not.
Yeah.
This is the S74 now, whatever. I was just getting used to using these C68, I think, the saltwater ones, which are not quite a circle hook, but a circlish hook. And they just disappeared. Mustad replaced them with something that's 20% more expensive, not as nice, and goes under a different name. But it's sort of a similar idea of a hook.
Good.
But you know, use whatever you like. Some people like short shank hooks for streamers, some like longer, you know, if you want but I mean, if you're going after trout, you don't want like something that's super wide gap and so on necessarily. I think size 6 standard, you know, and then just kind of bear in mind the actual size of of the thing, which is under 2 inches, I think.